All right, Connor, thanks. We're going to stay on the roads right now. The National Highway Traffic Safety Administration is looking into whether some Jeep SUVs can have their engines catch fire even when the ignition is off. The agency's investigating.
They promised Jeep's legendary reliability would return, that the quality issues were just temporary growing pains from new ownership. Meanwhile, this brand new Jeep just arrived on a flatbed truck with the transmission completely jammed in first gear. The owner paid $7,500 for a California Dream Machine. Instead, he got a 3,200-pound paperweight that can't even make it out of his driveway. They said modern Jeeps were built better than ever, that Fiat Chrysler had learned from their mistakes and was engineering vehicles worthy of the 7-slot grille legacy. They were setting you up for the biggest automotive betrayal in American history. This isn't just one unlucky buyer getting a lemon from a shady dealer. This is the story of how Jeep went from building legendary war machines that stormed Normandy Beach to manufacturing rolling disappointments. Can't survive a trip to Walmart. Consumer Reports just ranked Jeep dead last among all major automotive brands for reliability. 28th out of 28 brands. That's not just bad. That's historically catastrophic for a company that once defined ruggedness. While you're making payments on what you thought was an off-road legend, Jeep's quality control department is apparently run by people who've never seen a mountain. Dealer confession. I move about 20 Jeeps off the lot every month. At least half come back within the first year with transmission problems, electrical gremlins, or complete engine failure. Comment below if you've gotten a Jeep recall notice this year, because the worst is still coming. For 80 years, Jeep built their reputation on one unbreakable promise. Go anywhere, do anything. World War II soldiers trusted their lives to these machines. They crossed deserts, climbed mountains, and never let anyone down when survival was on the line. But here's what the glossy marketing brochures won't tell you about the brutal reality of modern Jeep ownership. Failure rates that would embarrass a discount airline. Reliability rankings that make Fiat look dependable. Warranty claims that are bankrupting dealerships across America. The 7-slot grille still looks legendary, but legends can die. What was once a symbol of American ingenuity has become a badge of Italian cost-cutting disguised as heritage marketing. They're cashing checks on 80-year-old reputation while delivering 21st-century disappointment. The same grille that conquered Europe now can't conquer a grocery store parking lot without throwing a check engine light. So, the million-dollar question becomes, does that iconic badge still mean invincible? Or have you been buying into marketing mythology that died with the greatest generation? The answer will shock you. And it starts with this California Jeep that can't move. Let me crawl under this chassis and see what we're actually dealing with here, because maybe this California Jeep will prove that geography can save you from Jeep's quality collapse. First surprise? No rust anywhere. That's genuinely rare for any Jeep that spent time in the Northeast, where most of these things look like they've been marinated in salt water after just 3 winters. I'm running my magnet test along the frame rails, and it's sticking solid. Real steel. Not some Bondo and Prayer bodywork job that I see on half the used Jeeps rolling through here. The leaf springs are clean, the shackles aren't completely corroded through, and I don't see any of the typical frame rot that turns these vehicles into death traps. This is actually what a California Jeep should look like. The dry climate preserved everything that would normally be dissolving by now. Previous owner detail? The guy who owned this before was a California firefighter, and you can tell he took care of it. No off-road battle scars, no obvious abuse. At least the frame's not Swiss cheese like most Jeeps I see. Maybe there's hope after all. Pop the hood, and here's what every Jeep buyer should pray to find: the legendary 4.0-liter straight-six engine that represents everything Jeep used to do right. This power plant is the one thing Jeep got absolutely right before Fiat ruined everything. I've personally seen these motors cruise past 300,000 miles with nothing but regular oil changes and basic maintenance. The firewall is pristine, no rust anywhere. And listen to this thing idle. Smooth as silk. Master mechanic quote, "These straight sixes are bulletproof. I've rebuilt maybe 3 in my entire 30-year career. It's everything else bolted around them that falls apart like a house of cards." You can see the engine bay is spacious, clean, and actually designed for human beings to work on. Compare that to modern Jeeps, where you need to remove half the car just to change spark plugs. This 120,000-mile motor probably has another 200,000 left in it. The cooling system looks solid, belts are in good shape, and there's no oil leakage anywhere. Great heart, but we're about to discover the weak bones elsewhere. But that shift lever, still completely dead. And here's where this California dream turns into a financial nightmare that'll make you question every life choice. This transmission uses what's called an internal slave cylinder design, a racing feature that belongs on a track car, not a daily driver that's supposed to haul groceries and camping gear. When that little $30 part fails, you can't just unbolt it from the outside like a normal car. No, some genius engineer decided to bury it deep inside the transmission case. That means pulling the entire transmission, splitting it open, replacing the part, and reassembling everything. What should be a 2-hour, $200 repair becomes a 12-hour, $1,500 nightmare. It's engineering arrogance disguised as performance enhancement. This isn't Formula One. It's supposed to be reliable transportation for people who work for a living. Here's the kicker. Later model Jeep transmissions moved the slave cylinder back to the outside where any sane engineer would put it. But if you're shopping for this generation, you're stuck with this labor-doubling design flaw that proves Jeep's engineers hate their customers. First rule of transmission diagnosis: check the fluid on level ground, because guessing costs money, and we're about to find out if this is a simple fix or a wallet-draining disaster. I'm moving this Jeep down to the flat part of my driveway where I can get an accurate reading. No point making assumptions when a simple fluid check might solve everything and save this owner thousands. Crawling underneath, here's the drain plug. On a properly maintained transmission, fluid should start trickling out when you crack it loose. And there it is. Full to the brim, so we can rule out the obvious culprit. This isn't a case of someone running it dry and frying the internals. The fluid level is perfect, and it's not burnt or contaminated like you'd see from catastrophic failure. That actually makes this more mysterious and potentially more expensive. When transmissions fail catastrophically, it's usually because someone ignored basic maintenance. But this owner clearly wasn't neglecting fluid changes, which means the problem is deeper than a simple top-off can fix. We're looking at internal mechanical failure, not maintenance neglect. Time for the moment of truth. Let's see if this thing can actually move under its own power, or if we're dealing with a complete mechanical failure that'll total the vehicle. I'm starting it up, pressing the clutch pedal, and shifting into first gear. Here we go. The engine revs, but the Jeep lurches forward like the clutch isn't disengaging at all. I'm heading straight for my neighbor's mailbox at about 5 miles per hour with no way to stop except kill the ignition. That was way too close to a property damage claim that would have made this video very expensive. The clutch pedal went to the floor, but the clutch disc never separated from the flywheel. This thing is essentially stuck in gear permanently, which explains why it arrived on a flatbed. Owner's panicked voice: "It just started doing this yesterday morning. I was backing out of my driveway and suddenly couldn't shift out of reverse. Had to shut it off and call a tow truck." This is exactly the kind of failure that leaves people stranded in traffic, rolling backward down hills or worse. Here's the good news that'll save this owner thousands. This isn't a transmission failure that would require selling a kidney to afford the repair. The clutch is completely worn out, but the actual gearbox is fine. I can prove it, because when I killed the engine, I was able to shift through all the gears manually. The synchronizers are working, nothing's grinding, and the shift forks aren't bent. A transmission rebuild would cost $3,000 to $4,000 and take weeks to complete. A clutch replacement? We're looking at $800 to $1,200 in parts and labor. Transmission shop owner: "I see this exact scenario maybe twice a month. Owner thinks their transmission is toast, but it's just a worn clutch disc. Saves them about $2,000 when I deliver the good news." The bad news? Remember that internal slave cylinder design I mentioned? Since we're already pulling the transmission to replace the clutch, we might as well replace that ticking time bomb too. Otherwise, it'll fail 6 months later and we'll be doing this job all over again. Still cheaper than a new transmission, but that labor-doubling design flaw just made this repair twice as expensive as it should be. If you're shopping for one of these older Jeeps, here's the inspection trick that could save you thousands and prevent you from buying someone else's nightmare disguised as a bargain. See these leaf spring shackles? They look decent from up here, but watch what happens when I get underneath with my magnet. On a typical Northeast Jeep, these would be rusted solid, completely seized, and ready to snap the first time you hit a pothole. The previous owner might spray paint over the rust to hide it, but a $5 magnet doesn't lie. If it won't stick, you're looking at Bondo fiberglass or rust so advanced that there's no metal left to magnetize. Rust inspection tip: always bring a small magnet when you're looking at used Jeeps. Check the frame rails, the shackles, the door frames, and especially around the rear wheel wells. If the magnet falls off, walk away immediately and don't look back. I've seen Jeeps where the entire rear section was held together with expanding foam and prayer. They look solid until you hit a pothole and the whole back end separates from the frame like a bad divorce. Now here's something interesting that gives me hope for this particular Jeep. Quality aftermarket modifications that suggest the previous owner actually cared about the vehicle instead of just abusing it. Bilstein shocks, a proper lift kit, and a stainless steel exhaust system. The previous owner clearly invested in the right upgrades, not just cosmetic nonsense that looks good in Instagram photos. But here's what most buyers get wrong. They see shiny mods and assume the vehicle was well maintained. That's backwards thinking that'll cost you thousands. Some of the most neglected Jeeps I've seen had thousands of dollars in flashy accessories bolted on. Off-road shop manager. Guys will spend $5,000 on a lift kit and fancy wheels, then skip $50 oil changes. I've seen lifted Jeeps with seized engines because the owner thought chrome bumpers were more important than basic maintenance. The smart money looks for bone stock vehicles with maintenance records, not Instagram-ready show trucks that hide neglect under expensive accessories. This particular rig strikes a good balance. The mods are functional, not just for show. Bilstein shocks actually improve ride quality, and that stainless exhaust will outlast 3 factory systems. Now let's talk about what happens when you walk into a Jeep dealership today, because the contrast between this old warrior and modern Jeeps will make you question everything you know about the brand. They'll try to sell you something like this 2017 Compass. All the showroom sparkle with none of the legendary durability that made Jeep famous. This is what happens when Fiat takes over an American icon and decides that profit margins matter more than reputation. Under that sleek exterior lurks Italian engineering, and not the good kind. We're talking about the same company that brought you unreliable Fiats, now badge engineering their way into your driveway with Jeep logos. Dealership service manager confession: the Compass keeps our service department busy, I'll give it that. We see the same customers every few months. Transmission shuddering, electrical gremlins, premature engine wear. It's steady work for us, but expensive for them. The irony is brutal. This thing wears the same 7-slot grille that stormed the beaches of Normandy, but it can barely survive a trip to soccer practice without throwing a check engine light. Pop the hood on this Compass and here's your first red flag. A tiny 2.4-liter 4-cylinder engine trying to move 4,500 pounds of vehicle like a marathon runner trying to deadlift a refrigerator. The physics just don't work. This engine has to spin at high RPMs constantly just to maintain highway speeds, which means it's always working harder than it should. High RPMs equal high wear, high fuel consumption, and high repair bills that'll make you miss your old car payments. Automotive engineers take, they optimized for EPA test cycles, not real-world driving. On paper, it looks efficient. In practice, you're constantly flooring it just to merge onto the highway. The result? This thing drinks gas like a V6 but accelerates like a riding lawnmower. You get the worst of both worlds, poor fuel economy and sluggish performance that makes every on-ramp feel like a life-or-death struggle. I've driven V6 engines that get better mileage than this 4-cylinder because they don't have to work as hard to move the same weight. It's engineering incompetence disguised as fuel efficiency. But the real nightmare begins when the electronics start failing and you realize that modern Jeep reliability makes a coin flip look predictable. I've got customers who've been stranded on their morning commute because the transmission simply refused to shift out of park. No warning, no check engine light, just dead in the water in a McDonald's parking lot with a line of angry commuters behind them. Frustrated owner testimonial: 3 times in 6 months I've had to call a tow truck. The dealer keeps saying they can't replicate the problem, but I'm the one missing work and paying for Ubers. The CVT transmission is particularly notorious for failures that would embarrass a discount appliance manufacturer. When it starts shuddering at 60,000 miles, you're looking at a $4,000 repair bill on a vehicle that's worth maybe $8,000 on a good day. Class action lawsuits are piling up faster than the repair bills. Owners are organizing online, sharing horror stories, and warning others to stay away from Jeep dealerships like they're contaminated with something contagious. Here's the one success story I found. A subscriber's Compass made it to 120,000 miles before the transmission finally gave up. That's considered a miracle in Compass circles. Here's where Jeep's marketing really falls apart and reveals the truth about modern off-road capability that exists only in advertising budgets. This Compass has less ground clearance than most sedans. That low-slung undercarriage kisses speed bumps in mall parking lots. Forget about actual trail driving that would require real capability. I measured it myself. 7.8 inches of ground clearance, My Honda Accord sits higher than that, yet Jeep markets this as trail-rated, with a straight face and the confidence of a politician making campaign promises. Off-road instructor's reality. I see these compasses show up to our beginner courses, and they're scraping bottom on obstacles that a stock Subaru Outback handles easily. The owners are always shocked when physics defeats marketing. The approach and departure angles are so shallow that you'll high center on a steep driveway. The skid plates are plastic, not steel, so one good rock strike and you're leaking vital fluids all over the trail. This isn't an off-road vehicle, it's a mall crawler with delusions of grandeur. The only trails it should attempt are the ones leading to Starbucks, and even those might be challenging. Now for the big one. CVT transmission failures that are bankrupting owners faster than a Las Vegas casino empties wallets. The numbers are staggering and getting worse every quarter. I'm seeing failure rates approaching 40% by 80,000 miles. When that CVT starts shuddering, slipping, or making grinding noises that sound like a dying robot, you're looking at a $5,000 repair bill minimum. Transmission shop owners warning. I won't even work on these CVTs anymore. By the time they fail, there's usually collateral damage throughout the entire system. It's cheaper to total the car than fix it properly. Class action lawsuits are multiplying faster than the failures themselves. Owners are organizing, sharing horror stories, and demanding accountability from Fiat Chrysler that will never come. The worst part? These failures often happen without warning, like automotive heart attacks. You're driving to work one morning and suddenly the transmission just gives up. No limp mode, no gradual deterioration, just complete catastrophic failure that leaves you stranded. Stranded owner's nightmare. I was merging onto I-95 when it happened. Lost all power, cars honking behind me, and a $400 tow bill to add insult to financial injury. Here's what you should buy instead if you want something that'll actually last longer than your car payments, because the alternatives make Jeep's failures look even more inexcusable. A used Toyota RAV4 with 100,000 miles will outlive a brand new Compass every single time. The reliability data isn't even close. We're talking about a 95% chance of reaching 200,000 miles versus maybe 20% for the Compass. Mechanics' honest recommendation. I tell my customers to buy the oldest, highest mileage Toyota they can afford rather than a new Jeep. At least with the Toyota, you know what you're getting. Reliable transportation that won't bankrupt you. Honda CR-V, Mazda CX-5, even a Subaru Forester, any of these will serve you better in the long run. Yes, you'll pay more upfront, but you'll save thousands in repair bills and lost time dealing with breakdowns. For serious off-road capability. Look at a used 4Runner or an early Lexus GX. They cost more initially, but they'll climb mountains for 300,000 miles without breaking a sweat or your bank account. The math is simple. Buy quality once or buy cheap twice and regret it both times. So, here's the million-dollar question that should keep Jeep executives awake at night. Will Jeep ever fix their quality problems, or will they keep cashing checks on 80-year-old reputation while delivering 21st century disappointment? The answer might surprise you, and it's not good news for anyone considering a Jeep purchase. Next week, I'm diving deep into the Wrangler's infamous death wobble problem that's affecting thousands of owners. You'll see exactly why even Jeep's flagship model is failing customers who trusted the brand with their safety and their money. If you know someone looking for a car in 2025, send them this video so they don't get taken for a ride by marketing mythology. Let's not let these companies get rich on our hard-earned cash while delivering products that would embarrass their World War II predecessors. Hit subscribe right now because the Jeep disaster is far from over. The worst recalls are still being announced, and I'll be here to warn you before they hit your driveway. Until then, remember that 7-slot grill might look legendary, but legends can die. Don't let your wallet die with them, and don't let Fiat's cost-cutting kill the last American icon worth saving. Stay sharp. The road ahead gets rougher.